it is a personal property of a wife, and when he dies, she has a right to take it away from his estate, because it is her personal property, and she has a right to inherit it and even pass it on to other people. And then, of course, another issue here, another condition is that the presence of witness on both sides. There must be a witness on the side of the bride, and also witnesses on the side of the bride, on the side of the bridegroom. Now, those are within the Islamic law, those are the crucial conditions. The rest of the conditions, once you fulfill those ones, you have a valid Islamic marriage. There's capacity, there has been offer and acceptance, there's consent of both parties, there's consent of the guardian, payment of mahar, and also a presence of witnesses on both on both sides. So those are the conditions that we look at in Islamic marriage. Of course, we know that the law requires us to register our marriages. However, registration of a marriage does not invalidate the marriage. It is a legal requirement. However, it does not render non-registration does not render the marriage celebrated between couples invalid. You only need to meet those requirements that we have highlighted here for marriage to be valid. But of course, the law has other requirements for purposes of the government policy and all other things. But what we need to understand here is that those are the requirements that you need to look at for you to say that now I have a valid Islamic marriage. I also want to really make a small emphasis on the issue of registration, because in the beginning, I highlighted that whereas when you meet the requirements I've talked about, your marriage is valid, we have practical challenges of non-registration, which I will highlight in the next slide. But it is important that we need to understand that registration also has its own benefits. First of all, we are saying that's a legal requirement. Section 5 of the Marriage and Divorce of the Mohammedans makes it compulsory all marriages to be registered with the Uganda Registration Services Bureau. So we need to fulfill our members need to understand that there is that legal requirement, and it must be fulfilled under all circumstances. Then we are saying that it will be important for us to register our marriages, because it is a safeguard for enjoyment of the marital benefits. We know if you want to if you want to benefit from life insurance, maybe of your spouse, you need to present evidence which shows that you are married. Whereas a marriage certificate is good, but sometimes we know that these ones can always get lost. They can be distorted, and the only way you have to prove your marriage is by going and checking with the Ursb to confirm whether your marriage was registered or not. Otherwise, if that assurance is not there, our people stand a chance of risking losing out to those marital benefits. The same thing happens to pensions, NSSF, people who want to immigrations. You know that when your husband is a citizen in another country, or when one spouse is a citizen in another country, by virtue of you being married, you can also automatically become a citizen of that country. But you can't do that if you don't have evidence showing that you are duly married. So all of those things, even when it comes to inheritance. And here I want to give an example. We have a case in court where a woman was married, and there was no documentation to that effect. And we have now challenges proving that marriage. But this is a woman who was working abroad. She bought the land. She used to send her money to her husband in Uganda to construct the house. And when the house was fully constructed, and when they got challenges, now the husband is disowning the woman. He's saying that land belongs to him, the house belongs to him, the woman never contributed anything. So we are facing challenges in doing this. And we have so many of our sisters who go abroad, make monies, and then they give back the monies to their people down here in Uganda to help them build themselves. However, when challenges occur and you don't have this proof, it will be very hard for you, therefore, to assert rights over those properties. Yes, we also know that in some countries where we travel and you want to, your husband and a wife, they will also require you to produce evidence of marriage. So in some circumstances where you don't have a marriage certificate, maybe you have forgotten it, I will want to inquire from, maybe we shall get that from Ursb. They shall get a response whether it is possible for someone to check online and find out whether they can check their marital status online and confirm whether they are registered or not registered. And we're also saying that registration is important because of for planning purposes, proper planning inside of the government. This marriage is not a private aspect. Once you get married, the government gets concerned. The government needs to know which people are married so that it can properly plan for its citizens. So we really want to emphasize on part of the Muslim marriages, many of them are celebrated, and because a registration is not a condition of validity, many of them therefore are reluctant to have their marriages registered. But we hope that people will understand the benefits of having the marriage registered and also know that actually it's a legal requirement to have a marriage registered, and maybe that
Kasim, we're losing you. I don't know. I think your connection is getting faulty. Kasim, are you there? Kasim was almost done, but I think his network has gotten faulty. Kasim, are you there? Can anybody alert me if they are listening?
Yes, we can hear you, Provia. He's just gone off. Maybe his
so it's
network.
Kasim's call. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, as we wait for Kasim, Leah, you can come in. Kasim can summarize when he comes back in. I think his network got faulty. Leah, you can share your screen and start your presentation. Leah Kisalu is a Senior Registration Officer with Uganda Registration Services Bureau, and she's going to share with us about the Christian legality of marriages, legality of Christian marriages. Leah, you have 15 minutes to share, and then we can take the questions. When Kasim comes back online, we shall conclude where he had ended.
Allow me to share. Hello, Provia, allow me to share my screen.
Please go ahead.
The video is off.
Yeah, make sure your background has no noise. Your background has noise. Make sure you clear the noise in your background.
Provia, can you see me?
Yes, you can start your presentation.
Yes.
We can do
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Tisalia Agnes, Senior Registration Officer in the Department of Civil Registration with Uganda Registration Services Bureau. And here we are here to share about whether your religious marriage is actually legal. So I'm going to share my presentation. And to start with, I would like to thank you, Kasim, for the work well done so far, because some of the things you touched are actually part of what I'm going to share, but I'll briefly still touch them because Kasim was basically sharing an Islamic marriage. So to start with, I have an outline. So we'll look at the legal framework of marriages. What is the role of Ursb in marriage registration? The types of marriages recognized in Uganda. Then, is your religious marriage legal? Procedure, forms, fees payable for marriage registration, and then the benefits. So to start with, as a legal framework, a marriage is provided for under the Constitution as a right. So every Ugandan or foreigner has a right to marry under our Constitution. And Uganda has been a friendly country that we receive so many people coming in to get married here. That's how good the Constitution is. It gives everyone the right to marry as long as you fulfill the conditions that go with the type of marriage you want to conduct in Uganda. Because some of the types of marriages we are going to share may not allow a foreigner to actually contract. But we have some of them that can actually allow you to get married in Uganda. So with the legal framework, we have the Marriage Act. The Marriage Act basically provides for monogamous marriages in Uganda. These are church marriages and civil marriages. And these civil marriages basically happen in all the districts of Uganda. And the chief administrative officer is the cow. That means that not all of you can come to Kampala and do a civil marriage. You can go to any district and have your marriage contracted, as long as you can prove that you reside in that district. Then we have the customary marriage, most of us know as the Kwanjula. This is under the Customary Marriage Registration Act, Cap 248. I want to inform you that a Kwanjula is a legal marriage, and we've been having so many of these series to tell the public that actually, when you do the dowry and you do your customary marriage according to your custom, you're a legal wife. Then we have the Muslim and Divorce of Mohammedans Act. That's what Kasim earlier shared. Then we have the Hindu and Divorce Act. The Hindus were taken on by the Constitution. These are people that are now part of our community as Hindus. Then we know people that were called the singers. These are the Hindu people. We have a law that allows them to actually get married under their act, so they are free to marry in Uganda. So Uganda Registration Services Bureau is an autonomous body that has the mandate to carry out all the marriage registrations in Uganda. So we are the regulatory body that is mandated to actually register all your marriages that I've mentioned. So under our legal framework of marriages, who is eligible to marry? Before we actually ask whether your religious marriage is married or your customary marriage is legal, or your Hindu or your Muslim marriage, are you eligible to actually contract a marriage? Yes, you must be of age. To get married, you must be above 18 years as per our Constitution. So any marriage below 18 years is not legal. Secondly, your marriage must be within the jurisdiction of Uganda, meaning if your marriage is outside Uganda, it remains a legal marriage. However, we do not have the mandate for foreign registers to put you on our register. But in whatever law you've married outside Uganda, you're still married. So if you're foreign and you're married outside Uganda, your marriage is legal, you shouldn't worry. But the only issue here is we need to amend our laws to accommodate a foreign register and know that Leah is a Ugandan who married in UK, so that when I fly in here, I don't confuse the public to still be a single person. Because if there was a register for foreign marriages, a foreigner who is a Ugandan, a foreigner who is coming and who really married me in Uganda, in another country, will be able to find out that actually I'm married, or the locals here will be able to actually prove that I'm married in another country. So we are trying to amend those laws to actually see that the jurisdiction covers foreign marriages. But as far as our legal marriages are concerned, we only register marriages that are conducted within Uganda. So any marriage outside Uganda cannot come to Ursb for registration, but it's recognized. Then number 3, to be eligible, you must be within the prohibited degrees of consanguinity. That is a bit legal, but this means you don't have to be related by blood. You cannot bring your sister, you cannot bring your auntie or your cousins, your first cousins. The law in Uganda does not allow you to marry a relative. So as you come for marriage, or if you want to have a legal marriage, make sure the person you're marrying is not of your clan according to your customs, is not your brother, is not your uncle's son or nephew or cousin or your mother's sister. Should not be within those degrees for it to be a legal marriage. Then consent. Like we earlier said, you should be of 18 years of age to contract a marriage. So there must be consent between the two adults under Article 31(3). So in case there is no consent, this marriage is not legal. It means that someone has been coerced into a contract of marriage. So for your marriage to be legal, please make sure that you've consented to enter into this marriage. You've not been coerced by your family, by your friends, by peer pressure. Consent is important. The number 5 is heterosexual. You must be of different sexes. Same-sex marriages in Uganda are prohibited by the different laws. But first of all, the Constitution does not allow same-sex marriages. So you must be a female and a male for you to qualify to be married. Then lastly, we have monogamous marriages or civil marriages. And these can only be dissolved by death or an order of court. Though I want to say that most of the marriages in Uganda can be dissolved at death and at dissolution in court. So this is a standard for most of the marriages in Uganda, be it customary. So don't be married customarily and you think because it hasn't worked out, you're going to go into a civil marriage or you're going to run to church with another man and get married. No. When you're married and you've not dissolved the marriage, you're still married to that person and the law still sees you as a married person. So let us not take our customary marriages to be informal. They're actually legal and they have to be dissolved in case you want to move on. So the role of Ursb in marriage registration, like I earlier said, our role in civil registration, we solemnize marriages in Kampala. So in Kampala, we are like the cow. Just like I said in the other districts, the cow is a register of marriages. In Kampala district, we solemnize marriages for residents of Kampala. As long as you prove you are a resident of Kampala or one of you is a resident of Kampala, we will marry you at our offices. Then we register all church marriages at Ursb. We license churches to celebrate marriages. Some of you are in churches that are married and all you're minding about is the gown you're going to wear, the reception, the decor. Please, the first thing you should find out is the church where you're getting married, licensed and gazetted to celebrate your marriage. And then we register Islamic marriages, like Kasim said, and divorces. The beauty with the Islamic marriage is that it gives the Muslims the right to register their divorce. Whereas with the Marriage Act, we do not have yet a divorce register where if someone is divorced, you can do a search and find out so-and-so divorced and is now married so-and-so. So that is also being worked on. But the Muslims, the moment you do a talaq, you are free to come and register your divorce marriage. Then we register Hindu marriages. We maintain the customary marriage register. If you're there and you did your introduction, like I said earlier, it is a legal marriage. So please, we urge you to register this Kwanjula with us. This marriage should be registered on the register because when it's not registered, it has challenges, as we shall go on discussing in my slides. Then, of course, as a role, we charge for these services as revenue. All these marriages are charged, and we shall let you know how much each marriage is charged to be registered. Next, we have types of marriages recognized in Uganda, like I earlier hinted on them. We have the civil and the marriage in the registrar's office. We have the Christian and church marriage. We have customary Hindu, Islamic, that is already handled. And all these in Uganda are celebrated according to the norms and customs of whatever marriage you've chosen. If it's a civil marriage, that is a state marriage, so it's before the cow. You'll have to fulfill what the cow needs you to fulfill, like your residence, your ID, where do you reside? Are you Ugandan? Are you a foreigner? If you're divorced, do you have a divorce decree? If you're widowed, can you prove that your previous spouse actually passed on? So with Muslim marriages, it's celebrated according to the rites of the Islamic faith. With the church, this marriage is also separated according to the rights and norms of that faith or denomination. Because in Uganda, we have so many denominations and faiths. So if you decide to go to SDA, if you decide to go to Catholic, if you decide to go to an Anglican church or Pentecostal, you must do your marriage according to the rights and norms of that faith, Christian faith. Then customary is celebrated according to the customs of an African community. As Africans, we have different customs, different tribes. So If you're Munyankole, you will do your kuhinju according to those customs. If you're Muganda, you follow that. If you're Mugisu, if you're naturally, we have the different customs where we expect you to have contracted your marriage under those customs of an African community. Then lastly, we have the Hindu. These are also celebrated according to the rites and observances of the Hindu faith. Kasim earlier shared the Muslim marriage, the different marriages must have a certificate as evidence of marriage. So if you're married customarily, it's not about the kwanjula and the gifts they brought on the day. Make sure that you're given a customary marriage certificate under the law, not the culture certificates. You know, when people get married, they exchange these culture certificates, and most of that settle for those thinking it's the legal certificate. No, the Customary Act has a standard customary marriage certificate for Kwanjula. Like you can see my screen, there's a Muslim marriage. If you belong to the Shivuli sect, they have their special certificate. If you belong under Supreme Council, they will give you a certificate. If you're under Hindu, they will give you a certificate for that marriage. And if you do church, the church will issue a certificate. Here as Ursb, as a regulator, we don't keep certificates for church marriages. We keep what we call a return. Since we don't issue these certificates, every church that has conducted a marriage is expected to bring us a record or a return of the marriage that has been entered in their church. So in this picture, this is how it looks like. So the church should enter your record, have this stamped and signed and forwarded to Ursb as a return, as a record to be entered on the National Register. So as people that intend to get married, we encourage you to make sure you have your certificate upon the marriage being celebrated. Of course, with customary, you may not have the sub-county chief around to issue this, but this can be issued a weeks after or within 6 months or later, because I want to encourage you that late registration does not invalidate a marriage. So anytime you come in, if you've done your customary marriage 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and all of you are still alive, we encourage you, and you've not gone actually to church. Or probably your husband has married another wife customarily, because customarily these marriages are polygamous. As Ursb, we encourage you to, both of you have your certificates. If you're two wives in that arrangement, you're entitled to a special certificate for yourself. The certificate at the screen is the civil marriage certificate. That's how it looks like, Form E. So all people intending to do civil marriage are also entitled to a marriage certificate, which must be given to you as a couple. Then if I'm to continue, is your religious marriage legal? I earlier gave us the eligibility requirements if your marriage is legal, and I would like to add on to this. A religious marriage can be Islamic, can be in a Catholic church, can be in an Anglican church, can be in a Hindu temple, can be in a Pentecostal church. So all these religious marriages are legal if at all they fulfill the condition of being licensed and gazetted. That's when it becomes a legal marriage. So before you actually go to this Catholic church that you saw attached to the Pentecostal, is this church licensed and gazetted? Please open up to your pastor. Most of us love our pastors so much that you can't ask the big question. The 1 million question before you say I do is not asked. And after a few weeks, probably you want to fly out for honeymoon, you realize this marriage cannot be located by Ursb, probably can't get a visa. So can we know, can we find out if actually the church you are getting married in has been gazetted? So immediately, is your religious marriage legal? Immediately after celebration of marriage, your pastor, your priest, your imam, it's your right to have a certificate. The different certificates I've shared. It's your entitlement. Don't go away without a certificate. And then I've had stories, someone saying I got married and I didn't take my certificate. Those are really rare instances. A marriage certificate should be issued on the spot, with exception of a customary where it is a celebration and you're only having culture certificate. This can be got much later with a sub-county chief signing it off and registering your traditional marriage. But the rest of the marriages, we expect you to have your marriage certificate as evidence of marriage. So engage these priests that have married you. Then a certificate, what makes a certificate valid? Besides you having a religious marriage, and probably your church has been gazetted and you've gotten your certificate. A certificate must have the couple's names. It must be signed by the couple. It must be witnessed by at least 2 people and the celebrant who has married you. Most of the times we have issues of names. People come up here to Ursb and they want us to change the order of names that the church has entered on your record, on your certificate. Ursb will not change that. We don't have the right to change your marriage certificate because we didn't author it. The marriage celebrant of the church should be able to write the right names the way you want them as per your identification. Because when you run up here to Ursb, we don't have the right to tamper with that record. What the church has issued, we presume that is actually the right name you hold. Unless there are issues of change of name and swearing deed polls, as Ursb, we are going to take the record that the church has brought to us, and we shall not change your names unless you prove that before a deed poll or you go back to church to correct your names. Then, is your religious marriage legal? Most of us come to get married when we're in a hurry. You say, I have only 1 week, I have 2 weeks. Every marriage has to be published, or a notice has to run for 21 days. However, we have exceptions, but before I go to the exceptions, even if in church, your marriage, the bans have to run for 21 days. And if your bans have not run, and probably you went to this pastor and told him, I need a visa, I need to do this, and you just know your marriage is illegal. 3 weeks have to run down the road. And after 21 days, you are free to get married. Though your application or your marriage in church is valid for 3 months from the time you applied to get married, meaning if the bans run out, you still have an allowance to change your mind, to set another date. But the moment the 3 months run out, the law says that that intention to marry or your application to marry has lapsed or has expired. Except for the Muslim faith that do not need to be licensed. A mosque doesn't need to be licensed and gazetted. You can go in there and do your Muslim marriage and have your marriage registered with us. But for the churches, I'm speaking about the churches, the notice must run for 3 weeks and a date can be set after 3 weeks. However, with the civil marriages, we have an exception of what we call a special license to waive the 21 days. We have couples that have emergencies. For instance, you've fallen sick and probably you're supposed to travel and you must travel with your spouse as a caretaker. You can give a reason to get married in about 2 weeks and you fly out and you probably get a visa. Probably you're going to school, you've been given a placement and your admission can't wait. So you want to leave when you've married your old-time fiancé so that they're not taken. You want to commit. There are so many instances where you can waive these 21 days, though the Minister of Justice has to look through this reason through the Registrar General. Your explanation of why you want an emergency marriage comes to Ursb for scrutiny, for the expert to look at your reason, does it pass, or you just want a fast marriage? Because we have people who are in a hurry to get married and probably they're trafficking people. So we don't hurry to give waivers unless you give a reason why you're actually, it's backed up by the document, why you want to have your wedding in less than 21 days. I hope even the churches are doing this because we don't expect to have your return in less than 21 days. It becomes an illegal marriage. And lastly, we have marriages that can be done in a venue out of church. And these are all special licenses. So the church can run your banns and you can have your marriage out of here or out of the church or out of the registrar's office. You have a right to gazette a place and have your marriage done out of office by a registrar or by the priest. And the outdoor marriages should be solemnized in an open place. If it's a church, it should be open between the hours of 8 and 6. If it's a register of marriages, it should be the hour of 10 and 4 p.m. Any marriage after 4 p.m. is null and void, and any marriage of church in a church that is after 6 p.m. is not legal. Excuse me. So next, we are going to why we need to register the religious marriage. A religious marriage. cannot be invalidated just because it's not registered. So if you're there and your church marriage was never brought to Ursb, even when you have challenges in this marriage, you cannot run out of this marriage. Your wife can still come up here and register the marriage. So in the case of Nasanga versus Nanyonga, the failure for parties to register their marriage did not invalidate it. However, we want to enforce the right to register your marriage, even when you think we do not know about it. It's the obligation of the church to bring your record to us. So if the church is still keeping it in their cupboard, it is a legal marriage. However, you as the person married, we do not have your record as government. Your marriage is not on the register. So we encourage us, can we have all our church marriages, religious marriages entered on the national register, just like we have national IDs and everyone is registered in the country. It is very important to have your marriage registered, and those are some of the benefits. Then, why do you register a religious marriage? As evidential value, having a certificate is important that your status has changed. Then it is statistics for the country, for the government to know how many people are married. Then you may want to do a search. There could be reasons why the people want to know why you're married, and probably someone thinks you are running around in another affair. So someone has a right, or you're engaging to marry someone and they need to know whether you're not actually married to someone else. So this religious marriage helps other people find out your status, because we have people who are not willing to disclose their status, that they are married. So when we have a register, why we're urging all of us to get on the register, people are able to know your status so that you do not confuse the public. You don't go into bigamy. You're already married. In case you're tired of this marriage, the law allows you to actually dissolve the marriage than waste someone's time taking them to church or running to a particular district to contract another marriage. So marriage becomes a public affair by the fact that this record is on a national register and someone will be able to know that you're actually married. Then marriage becomes a source of revenue, like I earlier said. Then a registered marriage is a safeguard for spousal benefits. We all know that we run insurance policies, we are working in government, and probably we have pensions, citizenship. You're traveling to a country and they need to know before you're allowed to be a citizen, who are you married to? If you're married to a foreigner, the government of the other country would want to know that you're actually a married person. So you want to migrate, they'll still have to know what is your status as you migrate. Are you a single person? If you're single, prove that you're single. If you're married, Ursb will have to give a record to whatever embassy you are asking a visa from. For insurance policies, most of us do these policies, and probably, unfortunately, you may die before you enjoy this policy, and you have beneficiaries, you have children, you have pension, and they need to use this pension or insurance benefits to actually do their school after you've left or you've demised. So if you're not a registered person as a married couple, it's a challenge to your inheritance, to your estate. It brings challenges to the people that remain around trying to run up and down to forge a certificate. Actually, for customary, it becomes worse. If one of you has died, then you cannot have a customary marriage registered. So we encourage for customary marriages to have your certificate signed off. Then marriages help to safeguard against bigamy. Bigamy is when you're already married and again you contract another marriage. So that is helping us safeguard the family unity. A married person should remain married. And then lastly, on the reason why we need to register, we want to note that marriages take place in unlicensed places of worship, and these marriages are null and void. Therefore, we encourage you to make sure your church is licensed so that you have a legal religious marriage, because all of us want to have a relationship with God in our marriages. But if a marriage is null and void, it's really absurd to our pastors, to our churches that we trust so much, that you do this big wedding and after a few months you realize your pastor wasn't able to disclose that you're actually not married. And in case the marriage has hit the rock, it is an exit for the other party who feels cannot make this marriage work. They will just walk out on you. So it's important to follow up before you get married, have a religious marriage, find out the basics like we've already discussed. to be safe. Then fees payable, all the different types of marriages pay the same fees. If you want to register your church marriage, Islamic marriages, Hindu marriage, it's 35,000 as a Ugandan and as a refugee. If you're a foreigner, you register your marriage at 35,000. And all this money goes to a concerted fund, it's paid in the bank. We usually guide you on how to make sure this money goes to the bank. So for a religious marriage, I know there are people who may not know what it takes to register your religious marriage. If the church has not brought your record with us, we usually encourage you to get a cover letter from your church in case it's an emergency and you actually need it to use it somewhere. A cover letter will be needed. Your IDs as a couple will be needed. You could have a national ID, you could have a passport. All these are needed as you're coming to register your church marriage or religious marriage with us. Then we'll be able to certify and have that record or return certified. To wrap up this, Muslim marriages are also filed as good as Islamic marriages, like the earlier discussed, and the money is actually the same. But in case you want to check out whether your marriage is registered, we usually encourage you to pay 25,000 in the bank, and we are able to check whether your marriage is on the register. I want to wish you well as we ensure that our religious marriages are actually legal. And lastly, you can register your marriage in the different offices we have outside Kampala. We have a regional office in Mbale at the Ministry of Justice. We have a regional office in Mbarara. If you're married in that area code, you can register your marriage in Mbarara. If you're in Gulu, you can still do the same. If you're in Arua, you can still do the same. So you don't have to actually board a bus to come and register your marriage. Alternatively, you can send us an email on marriages@ursb.go.ug. Scan all these documents in one PDF. You don't have to put in a bus to come and register your religious marriage. Attach all the different documents we've talked about, your cover letter, your IDs, your payments, and we shall have this marriage registered. Maybe lastly, we are going on to trying to see that all the churches go onto our system. We have an online system, an NMRS system, where all churches are trying to get accounts so that they sit at the comfort of their churches and they're able to register your marriages without having to travel all the way to our offices. So we are encouraging all the churches to actually get on board, because we've experienced this during COVID, and we had to go digital on this and encourage churches to go online. During COVID, people wanted to file their marriages, they wanted to fly out, they wanted to certify what we already have. But if the marriage is still in the office cabin and we've not received it, then we cannot certify it. But when it's online, it simplifies the process of you having to run up and down to make sure that your marriage is entered on the National Register. Thank you so much, Provia and the co-host. I want to take back the microphone to the hosts for any questions on whether your marriage is legal.
Thank you so much, Leah, for your wonderful presentation. Kasim has joined us. Kasim, sorry about your network. You left before you concluded, but I'll give you a minute to conclude. Before we continue, I know we are a few minutes late. I request that you give us 10 or 15 minutes to close the session. There are a number of questions we would like to respond to. Leah, you're going to take this question. Just a second. Please explain the following. It's from Mugero Jesse. What does filing an annual return mean? And how do I know if my church registered the marriage at Ursb? Leah, can you take that?
Thank you, Provia. Filing an annual return, it's twofold. If it's a church, let me explain it in a church environment. If it's a church and this church is registered as a company by guarantee, it has to file a return every year. If it's a marriage return, a return is filed by the church. It's the record of marriage for each church that has married 10 couples, 15 couples. The return we are talking about here in this series is about your record of marriage being brought to us as URSB as a return. The return for a marriage is not an annual return like a company return. It's a record of that marriage that the church entered that we want the church to come and file with us. If your question is taken back to the company side, a company files a return every year annually. Whereas for marriages, we expect the priest, the imam, the sheikh to be filing these returns every month for all the couples that you've solemnized, for all the marriages that you've wedded. A marriage return must be filed every month as per the law.
Okay, thank you, Leah. I know you had a very interesting discussion where you spoke about marriages in churches that are unlicensed being null and void. I hope everybody had that and took note of it. So someone has asked, how do I know if my church registered the marriage at Ursb? As you explain that, you're also going to explain this. Help me explain a little more on if a Christian outdoor wedding is legal. Leah, can you take those? Then we go to Kasim.
Thank you, Provia. How do you know that your marriage is with Ursb or is registered by the church?
Yes.
Usually we encourage whoever wants to find out if the church actually brought your marriage return or marriage record to us. You do what we call a search. A search helps you to check and see if your church is filing records or it actually filed your return. So you pay 25,000 to actually find out if your specific marriage was actually filed by your church. But that is not fatal as it may be. You could still bring your return yourself in case the church never brought it in and it's a return or it's a marriage of 10 years, 15 years. It is still a legal marriage. So in case you search and we tell you we do not have a record of your marriage, it does not invalidate your marriage because Ursb does not have this record. It means your record is not yet on the register. Just like not everyone has a national ID and they are not on the national register, it's the same with marriages. Please, we encourage you to do a search. In case you do not find yourself on the marriage register, it's not a crime. Go back to your church, talk to your priest, talk to your imam, talk to your pastor. They can still bring this return. But in case it's an emergency, you can still pay the 25,000 and the 35,000 to actually come and file your return with Ursb. Then the second question about the Christian outdoor marriages. These marriages are legal. I earlier said that the church, the law allows a couple to gazette a special place of marriage. But this means that this couple has run the banns in the church for the 21 days or the 90 days period for this marriage to be legal. So these banns run in the church. However, the couple has to go an extra mile to write to the Minister of Justice an application requesting to gazette Munyonyo, Sheraton, whatever hotel you want your wedding to be at. So the minister, the registrar general will, through the minister, forward your application and giving reason why you do not want to be in church for your wedding and why you want this marriage to go to a special venue. So the minister will clear your file to gazette that marriage for that specific day. So that marriage will happen only for that day. That means that if the marriage never happens, if your priest has a challenge and probably doesn't show up, it is a gone case. It's an illegal marriage as far as that license or gazette notice is concerned. It means you have to go back to church to make this marriage legal and get married properly. So you have to be careful if you decided to gazette the venue, make sure the wedding happens between the right hours so that you do not have an illegal marriage. So a Christian wedding that is outside the church is a legal marriage as far as the Marriage Act is concerned. Thank you, Provia.
Thank you, Leah. This goes to Kasim. Kasim, during your presentation, you spoke about the Muslim marriages not having age of consent, but again, you went deeper to explain that you follow the Constitution. Kasim, could you come and explain to the listeners whether there are instances where marriages can happen with people, Muslim marriages with people below 18 years, and if they happen, how you handle that? Kasim?
I did explain that I needed to first give information that, of course, as far as the religion is concerned, there is no fixed age, because the purpose there is religion is not based in a
Kasim,
particular
could you move near to your mic? Your voice is disappearing.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, but you're a bit fast, so maybe add the volume on your mic.
Okay, let me just do that. Is it better now, really?
You just add the volume on your gadget, eh? You can proceed now. Kasim?
I've unmuted.
Yeah, now you can proceed.
I was saying that religion per se does not fix a particular age, because therefore religion does not stop in a particular country, is universal, and different countries have to take different ages and according to their own jurisdictions. However, coming back to Uganda here, we told people that the practices are subject to religion. Therefore, you cannot contract a marriage where persons are below the age of 18 years. We follow the constitution, and we understand that some members within our community do really practice that, and we are trying our level best to discourage that. We are telling the people that what the constitution is providing for is that you must be 18 years of age, and once you do that, marriage persons are below 18 years of age, that marriage will not be allowed and not be considered. So it's a practical one of the practical challenges we face. However, there's a lot of sensitization around that area. The imams are being told every other time, and I think leadership is also doing enough to make sure that people do not take people into marriage when they are below the age of 18. So legally, the marriage will not be legal if you are not above 18 years.
Okay, thank you, Kasim. Leah, you're going to take this. If I had married customarily, but not registered, then my husband wed another woman in church, is this valid? Is this marriage valid?
Thank you, Provia. If you've done a customary marriage first, customary marriages are potentially polygamous. You cannot contract another monogamous marriage if the person you're taking to church is not the same person. The law allows you to cross over, to turn your customary marriage into a monogamous marriage if at all the person you're marrying is the same. It means you're crossing over from a polygamous arrangement to a monogamous arrangement. There's an exception in the customary law that says that the person you've married customarily is the same person you're supposed to have a monogamous marriage with. So it means if your husband did a customary marriage much earlier with you and took another wife or another woman to church or for civil, the second marriage is null and void because there's a subsisting marriage he has left behind in a polygamous arrangement, meaning for this marriage to be valid, this man should either marry this wife customarily to be in a customary arrangement. But when you run to church, the law forbids a church marriage where there is a pending or subsisting customary marriage. So that means the second marriage will become illegal. Of course, as human, we feel bad because the whole world has seen the big wedding. But you can challenge that and say, I'm still married to this man. And you can nullify the second marriage. So the man has to actually divorce you first before he takes any wife to court, or decide to do another customary marriage for all of you to be in a customary arrangement. So the second marriage is null and void as far as the law is concerned. Whether your customary marriage was never registered, it is still a live marriage. It is still a subsisting marriage. So the first customary marriage not being registered does not kill the marriage and does not give a leeway to the other person to marry another wife. They must dissolve the first subsisting marriage before they take anyone to church, or they maintain the status quo and we are all in a customary arrangement. Thank you, Pravia.
Thank you, Leah. You're taking this last question. Are all Catholic Church parishes registered to carry out marriages since the Catholic Church is known world over?
Thank you, Provia. The Marriage Act is very clear that any place of worship to celebrate a marriage should be licensed and gazetted. A license is for a specific place of worship. The Catholic Church is big, but let me narrow it down to Uganda. Uganda as a country gives jurisdiction for the different places of worship to carry out marriages. That means that each Catholic church must have a license or must be gazetted to carry out a marriage. So you cannot use one license. For instance, we all know Rubaga Cathedral. You cannot go to any Catholic church anywhere in Uganda and say, because I'm a Catholic and the Rubaga Cathedral is licensed, it means if I go to Mbarara, if I go to Kamuli and do my marriage in a Catholic church, it's a legal marriage. No, the law is requesting you to gazette that specific marriage, or rather specific church where you want to get married. So the Catholic Church does not hold an omnibus license for all Catholic churches. No, the law is very clear on this. We want to encourage the different churches that are marrying people. Please come up and license that place of worship specifically. If it's St. John's, it should have a special license. If it's St. Sebugwao, then Sebugwao, it must have a license. If it's St. Peter, Judah Tadeo, Our Lady of Fatima, all those must have licenses. So outside Uganda, those become foreign marriages as much as the Catholic church is a Catholic church. It means that Catholic marriage has been conducted according to the norms of the Catholic Church in that country, because each country has laws, has marriage laws that govern them. And earlier I said a marriage outside Uganda is recognized and legal, but it cannot go on the marriage register. So that means if you decide to do your Catholic marriage in any other country, it is a legal marriage, but I cannot register it with Ursb. But when you come to Uganda to have a legal marriage, we need it to be in a gazetted place as far as it's a Catholic church. So the Catholic Church has its norms and customs, but the norms and customs do not supersede the supreme law, which is the Constitution, that is giving us a right to marry, and having other domestic laws that are saying for you to have a legal marriage or religious marriage legal, you must marry in a gazetted and a licensed place. So Provia, we do not have an omnibus for the whole Catholic Church as one license. Each Catholic church should have a special license for it.
Thank you, Leah. We have come to the end of our engagement today. I see the Deputy Registrar General with us, Mr. Alex Anganya. Could you kindly close our event with a nice parting shot since we're going into the weekend? Mr. Alex Anganya.
Thank you, Provia, for moderating the training. Thank you, the presenters, Leah and your colleague, and all the participants. We are delighted to have you today in our series that we have been running, at least to bring us to speed to some of the mandate, the laws that we implement, so that our clients, our stakeholders are aware of their obligations. Your participation is good because it gives us the impetus to work hard, to know that we have people to serve. And for us, we shall always do our best to bring all our clients to know or to appreciate the expectation and the law. Today, we were looking at civil marriages, especially the legal aspects. And I'm happy that our brother took us through the other aspect of the Islamic faith in marriages or marriage, and then Leah took us through the overall civil marriage, especially in the areas of the legality. Now you have been informed, as the saying goes, that knowledge is power. Let's do our best as citizens to formalize our marriages, or to know where you will go and celebrate your marriages. I like the last question where somebody was asking that is it an omnibus that when a Catholic Church X is licensed to celebrate a marriage, then all Catholic churches in the country or in the whole world would be seen to have been licensed. It is now incumbent upon you and me to appreciate which church we go to. And also it also informs us, we the regulators, that we need to do a little more in order to bring our clients to speed. And I want to promise us all that on our part, as a bureau, we shall be bringing all these aspects of our registrations to the population, to the clients, so that we really make an informed decision. I know time has gone and we need to close this or to end this. Finally, I want to thank you again for your attendance, your participation, and I say all this for God and my country.
Thank you so much, Mr. Anganya. Thank you for gracing our presentation, the whole hour and a half. Thank you so much, Kasim, for attending and explaining about Muslim marriages and what it entails. Thank you so much, Leah from within Ursb, for taking time to explain to us, especially the legalities concerning religious marriages. And thank you once again, participants, for being available and listening to us every Friday. Maria, we saw your message. We shall send you the presentation as requested on your email after this. Thank you, everyone. We are done with our presentation. Have a lovely Friday. And we meet again next week at 3:30. Same place.